My name is Walter Hale. I am 65 years old. 3 nights ago, my phone rang at 3 in the morning, and the voice on the other end was not the confident son I had raised, but a broken man calling from a county jail. Dad, I need you. He said my father-in-law framed me. They say I destroyed the company, but I swear I didn't. 3 sentences shattered 45 years of silence between us, and I grabbed my truck keys without another word before that week was over. Everyone who had betrayed my son was going to discover they had chosen the wrong family to destroy. Before I tell you what happened next, please hit like and subscribe. Drop your city and local time below. I love knowing where you are listening from. Now let me take you back to a Monday morning fixing fence posts in Wyoming, and a feeling I could not yet name. I own 500 acres of wheat land outside Sheridan, Wyoming. I wake up before 4 every morning, feed the horses, check the fence line, and make bad coffee on a percolator that belonged to my wife Margaret before she passed 13 years ago. Some mornings I still set out 2 mugs from habit before I catch myself and put the second one back in the cabinet. My son Caleb is 45 years old. With his mother's amber brown eyes and my own stubbornness, he is the kind of man who arrives early, stays late, and has never once asked for anything he did not believe he had earned. He moved to Denver 8 years ago to work at Printout Logistics, his wife Vivian's family company, building something entirely on his own without my name attached to it. I was proud of him for that. Pastor Owen Briggs, one of the few men I would call a genuine friend, came by every Monday morning for coffee, same as he had for 11 years. That particular morning he asked how Caleb was doing. I told him fine, in the tone Owen has known long enough to understand means I am worried and have not yet decided what to do about it. I had extended $50 million in credit to Printout Logistics 3 years earlier, based on financial statements signed personally by Harlan Printout, my son's father-in-law, a man I had never fully trusted. From the first 30 seconds I shook his hand. That same Monday, my assistant Peggy called to tell me Printout's compliance filing was 30 days late, with auditors flagging 3 discrepancies in the revenue figures. I told her to escalate quietly, no communication to Printout until I said so. What I did not know that morning was everything unfolding 250 miles south in Denver. Caleb's CFO, Marcus Delling, had come to his desk asking him to push back payment terms on the largest contract Caleb had ever personally negotiated, $5.2 million in medical imaging equipment bound for a hospital consortium, his own name and guarantee attached to the delivery schedule. Delling would not meet his eyes when he left. That same week, Caleb's sister Donna called again, telling him she had seen Vivian at a restaurant with a man she did not recognize, and that Vivian had lied to her face. Without blinking, Caleb told her she had never liked Vivian and ended the call. He admitted to me later that he had believed Donna completely, and simply could not afford to know it. Yet that night, Vivian's phone lit up on the nightstand with a message from a sender saved only as a single letter, W. She left the room to answer it. Caleb chose, once again, not to look. The following Tuesday morning, a man named Dennis Okafor, a port operations manager in Oakland with 19 years of professional instinct, called Caleb to tell him container MED 2247, the $5.2 million shipment, had left the port 3 days earlier and never arrived at its destination. It had been logged out under an. Dennis had printed that email out on nothing more than instinct, and kept it in a manila folder in his desk drawer, a decision that would later become one of the most important pieces of evidence in a federal fraud case. Caleb learned that the authorization required internal system credentials held by only 4 people, Harlan, Marcus Delling, himself, and Vivian, whose access he had personally granted 3 days earlier out of routine trust. Dennis traced the sending IP address to an external connection that did not match any device registered to Printout Logistics headquarters. Caleb wrote the address down, not yet knowing where it would lead, but understanding with cold clarity that someone very close to him had orchestrated the disappearance of a shipment carrying his own name and guarantee. Within days, Harlan Printout turned the missing container into a story about Caleb's negligence, and Marcus Delling's testimony to the board painted my son as the man who had personally authorized the release. Caleb was arrested on suspicion of fraud and embezzlement before the true authorization trail was ever fully investigated internally. Vivian standing beside her father throughout, saying nothing in her husband's defense. I wish this had gone differently. I wish my son had trusted his own instincts 8 years ago the way his mother always trusted hers, instead of choosing again and again not to look at what frightened him. But wishes do not undo 8 years of a marriage built on things left unexamined. The truth is I sat alone in my kitchen the night before driving to Denver, looking at Margaret's photograph on the shelf, and told her I should have said something years ago about what I saw in Vivian at their wedding. I let myself cry, not from weakness, but from finally understanding how much I had let slide out of respect for a life that was never entirely what it appeared to be. The night Caleb called me from that county jail, I drove through the dark toward Denver with Dennis Okafor's printed email and the external IP address already forwarded to my own legal team by morning. Just before midnight, I signed a retainer agreement with a forensic financial firm, authorizing a full trace of that IP address and every transaction connected to the Stockton warehouse. 12:03 in the morning. I am 65 years old. I am, for the first time in 8 years, no longer a father standing quietly at a respectful distance from my son's life. Somewhere in Denver, Harlan Pruitt and Marcus Delling were almost certainly confident the story had already been settled. My son behind bars and their names untouched, they had no idea that the external IP address traced by Dennis Okafor's forgotten printout led directly back to a device registered under Vivian's own name. By the end of that week, the forensic trace confirmed the authorization email had originated from Vivian's personal laptop, and further records showed the Stockton warehouse was leased under Shell. Company connected to Harlan Pruitt himself, the FBI, already investigating Pruitt Logistics for the earlier compliance discrepancies I had flagged through Peggy, opened a formal fraud case naming Harlan, Marcus Delling, and Vivian directly. Caleb was released within days. The charges against him dropped entirely once the evidence trail was clear. He looked at Vivian across a courtroom hallway the way he always had, expecting some explanation that would make sense of 8 years together. She offered none. He had not been the trusting man who handed her his credentials in a long time by that point. Margaret used to smile and wait for me to work through my worries myself instead of telling me what to do. I always thought that was simply her way of respecting me. I understand. Now she was teaching me that some truths a person has to arrive at on their own timeline, no matter how much it costs to wait. Harlan Pruitt and Marcus Delling are currently facing federal fraud charges, and Vivian's role in authorizing the stolen shipment is under separate review. Caleb has moved back to Wyoming for now, working the land beside me while he decides what comes next. As for me, I still set out 2 mugs some mornings, and I no longer put the second one away quite so quickly. I think of Margaret every time I look at that photograph on the shelf, and I think, the people who love you best sometimes protect you simply by refusing to look away when everyone else already has. If you have ever discovered that trust you gave freely was used against the person you loved most, I want to hear your story. Tell me in the comments, and if this one moved you, subscribe to Dad's Revenge Tales. There is more where this came from.